Boldwood presents When She Sleeps, written by J.A. Baker and read by Claire Story. The moral right of the author has been asserted. This performance is owned by Boldwood. Chapter 1. I'm freezing. It's the first thing I notice as I drag myself out of sleep's grip. The skin on my arms, my stomach, my face is icy. My entire body is so very, very cold. Then I feel it. The sticky sensation on my hands, my legs. It jars. Incompatible with the grogginess that clings to me like ivy on a knotted tree trunk. I sit up, pull back the bed sheets, blinking repeatedly, my eyes blurred, gritty. I wait for my vision to adjust to the darkness. The sun has yet to make an appearance. Outside is silent, dim and empty. Inside remains swathed with an inky blackness. I turn on the bedside lamp, force my brain to stir itself, to come to life like an animal rousing from a deep hibernation. And then I see it. To say it is a scream would be untrue. An exaggeration even, definitely not a scream, more of a guttural grunt. That's the sound that emerges from my throat as I leap out of bed, my legs weak, the floor spongy beneath my feet. A kaleidoscope of muted colours spins past as dizziness takes hold. I look down, see the vivid streaks of blood over my limbs, my torso. I clasp my hand over my mouth, stifling my shrieks. I'm bleeding to death. I'm not bleeding to death, I can't be. I'm alive. Up and out of bed, not close to collapsing or passing out. I'm woozy. That's the shock. Shock at discovering a thick coating of sticky crimson streaked over my flesh, over my legs, across the upper half of my body, even my face. I can feel it, smell it, that pungent metallic odour, the smell of ageing bodily fluids, the stench of decay. My head pounds. My breathing is laboured. I have no idea what to do, my brain failing me. I flail about the room, naked and shivering, then stop and try to take stock. This is not menstrual blood. This is different. Very different. Lungs fit to burst, I inspect my body for cuts and lacerations. My fingers trailing over the red marks, my arms and legs turning this way and that as I scan for anything that will give me a clue as to what is going on here. I need to calm down, think clearly. Hysteria and confusion have hijacked my thinking, swarming around my head, flapping and colliding. A flock of angry birds pecking at my brain. The mattress groans under my weight as I slump onto it, the rational part of my mind willing the panic and confusion to dissipate. My eyes are drawn to the floor, to the trail of dirty footprints leading to the door, out of the door, onto the landing. I swallow. Listen to the thrum of my own heartbeat that pulses in my ears, fierce waves crashing onto the shore, a lonely echo in the quiet of the room. A reminder that I'm alone. Beside me, slung over the chair, are yesterday's clothes, an old t-shirt, a pair of jeans, and my underwear. I pull them on, step into the trainers I kicked off last night, and head onto the landing, my throat thick with anticipation at what I might find there. I flick on the light. It highlights more muddy footprints scattered over the stair carpet. I continue down, following them like a trail of breadcrumbs, staring at the dirt and soil compressed into the grey fabric, until I reach the bottom step. A cold breeze stops me in my tracks. I shiver, too afraid to look. Too afraid to move. Too afraid to do anything at all. Goosebumps prickle my skin. My breathing becomes noisy, ragged. I try to stifle it. to silence every movement I make. A metallic clunk stills my blood. It's coming from somewhere in the house. The kitchen, I hear it again. A rhythmic thudding. Oh God, somebody is in there inside my house, wandering about in my home. Outside, the wind builds. It rustles through the trees, moans around the exterior of the house, a ghostly wail demanding to be heard, forcing its way into my thoughts, making me think the unthinkable is about to happen, because it could. I could stand here, timid and afraid, thinking, why me? But of course, why not me? Such things happen all the time, and I should know. I shuffle forwards, glancing around for something. Anything that I can use to protect myself. I stop, try to calm down, to go through all the possible answers, every conceivable scenario. Protect myself against what? An intruder? An overactive imagination? I need to think clearly here, not jump to irrational conclusions. This is a safe place to live. I know this area, grew up here. Nothing bad happens round these parts. I swallow, stare down at my feet and blink to clear my misted vision, because I know that that is a complete lie. Bad things did happen here, but not anymore. The past is behind me, a long way behind me. A shiny new future beckons. I will do well to not dwell on what went before. Therein lies the inevitable route to misery. 40 years have passed. Much has happened. It's as if it is part of a life that belonged to someone else. I'm no longer that bereft child. The girl who lost a sibling. I am me, a grown woman with children of her own. I snap back to the present, shake off thoughts of my other life, those dark memories that plague me. Last night, I locked the door before going to bed. I have no doubts about this, none whatsoever. My fingers itch to grab at something. I need to feel safe. Beside me stands the old china vase given to me by my sister, a gift from our grandma that she didn't particularly like, and I wouldn't allow her to throw away. I pick it up, my hand wrapped around it, its cool surface sticking to my clammy palm, its bright yellow hue a dim shaft of colour in the murky half-light of the early morning. As slowly as I can, as silently as I can, I edge forward, do my utmost to stem my rising fear, to keep my breathing low and inaudible, and not allow my emotions to overwhelm me, even though terror is rising in my gut, creeping up my throat, shrieking into my head. This is my house, my safe place. Nothing and nobody can get to me here. This is my sanctuary. I murmur the words over and over like a mantra. As I creep through the hallway, my movements disconnected from my brain, my usual dexterity abandoning me, leaving me floppy-limbed and feeble. The thudding continues. Perhaps it's a window, slightly ajar, and the wind has pushed at it, causing it to rattle. But that doesn't explain the blood, or the muddy footsteps. My heartbeat quickens. I shuffle through to the kitchen, a spike of ice travelling up my spine, flooding my veins, spreading beneath my skin as I step onto the tiled flooring. More thudding. A gust of cold air hits me. I suck in my breath. The back door is wide open. I close it, turning the key, then lean against the glass panel to steady myself. This unexpected find stripping me of all my strength. I look around the room, attempting to survey any differences, no matter how small or insignificant. Everything is the same. No changes, nothing has been moved. No damage. What if the intruder didn't leave? What if somebody is now locked in the house with me? I shut my eyes, swallow down a small amount of sour bile. I can't think about it. I won't. It's too terrifying a thought. I need to stop this. I have to get a grip. It's obvious I didn't lock the door properly and it blew open. This has to be the case. I was sure I locked it. I was wrong. That's all it is. As if to confirm my thinking, the wind gathers pace outside, tree limbs groaning and swaying wildly, their long gnarled branches shifting like spindly arthritic fingers, silhouetted against the backdrop of a burnt orange sky, as the sun appears, a watery orb lazily dragging itself upwards off the horizon. I pace around the kitchen, switching on lights and lamps, then do the same in the living room and hallway to prove to myself that I am indeed very much alone, which I am. There's nobody here. I fling open cupboard doors, peek behind cabinets, turn on the radio, the background noise alleviating my fears. It's the voices. They fill the void of silence that is all around me. The house slowly comes to life, every second, every minute edging closer to the warmth and vibrancy of daytime. Outside, the dawn breaks. None of the things that comfort me help me piece together what has happened. Once again, I inspect myself in the mirror, checking my face for cuts, scrutinising my arms and legs for damaged flesh, and find nothing. No pain, no dull aches. Nothing to indicate I have a wound that caused this. Another examination of the house before I head back upstairs for a shower. All clear. I sigh and allow myself a small smile. Relief unfurls itself in my chest. A warm, furry thing flooding my body, expanding in my veins. Any immediate danger has passed. I'm safe. Safe from an unseen, unknown menace. It doesn't explain the muddy footprints, however. I shut out that thought, tell myself to stop. In the bedroom, the clock at my bedside tells me it's 5:30 a.m. Almost time to get up, to rouse myself, get showered, clean this mess off my skin and tidy the bedroom. Forget the open door, forget my fears. Move on from it all, try to pretend nothing bad or frightening took place. An hour later, I am dressed, the soiled bedsheets and my clothes thrown into the washing machine, my hair washed and dried, the house back to its usual calm and tranquil self. Feeling braver than I did a short time ago, I unlock the back door and head outside, ready to confront whoever may be hiding out there, yet also knowing I won't find anything. Not quite. I do find something. Not a person, but something that sends a deluge of disgust coursing through me. Something that raises more questions than it answers. Laid across the back lawn is a dead animal. It looks like a dog. Instinctively, I take a step back, my hand clasped over my mouth. Time ticks by, seconds, minutes perhaps, before I can gather up enough courage to inspect the bloodied carcass. Up close, I can see that it isn't a dog at all, it's a fox. Its damaged form spread-eagled on the grass, its back legs partially concealed beneath the shrubbery. In its mouth is a small animal, the lumpiness of its body partially shredded and skewed. I stare down at my hands, recalling the blood on me, those sickening red smears. It's too grim, too revolting to consider. There is no link. There can't be. I think of the open door and swallow hard. I think of the muddy footprints, recall the dirt on my feet as I showered, and tried to stop my racing thoughts. Probably a badger what did it. A pain shoots up my neck as I swivel to see Mr. Waters' head peeking over the top of the fence, his cloudy pale eyes meeting mine before resting his gaze on the dead fox. A badger? I don't know why I'm answering. I don't want to become embroiled in a conversation about this atrocity. I want to clear it away, dart back inside the house, double-lock the doors and stay there for the remainder of the day. Aye, vicious little buggers they are. Fox probably made off with his dinner or tried to steal one of its cubs, and this is the net result. My eyes are suddenly heavy. I squeeze them shut, sigh, try to gulp down a nervous rush of saliva that has filled my mouth. Surprised you didn't hear it all last night. Right ruckus it was. I was stood at bedroom window watching it all happen. Could have sworn I saw somebody down here afterwards. I thought it was you cleaning it up. Mind you, my eyes aren't what they used to be. Bloody cataracts. Could have been the shadow of the trees. That wind blew everything around. I heard my bin topple over into the patio at one point. What a clatter it made. The nervous rush of saliva turned into a tsunami, flooding the recesses of my gums, swilling around my mouth. A sour wash of liquid I am desperate to spit out. I try to smile, to appear at ease as he speaks, all the while wishing he would disappear. I need time to think. I need some space on my own. Anyway, if you need any help clearing it up, you know where I am, lovey. His head disappears, sinking behind the fence. I fear that he hasn't gone back inside his own little house, but is squatting down on the other side, listening to me, working out whether or not I know how to dispose of this thing safely. Only when I hear the click of his door do I move, my head swimming, a cold sensation shifting around my belly, a coiled viper slithering around my guts. Could have sworn I saw somebody down here afterwards. I thought it was you cleaning it all up. I bat away the residual thoughts that linger in my brain. Thoughts conjured up by his words. It's nonsense. Mr. Waters is an old man. His eyesight is spectacularly poor. He's bored, has an overactive imagination, likes to embellish on the facts, conjure up a story when there isn't one to be had. As he said, it was a stormy night, bad weather, poor visibility, things strewn around the garden. On and on I go, convincing myself of his many faults and delusions as I pull on a pair of latex gloves and wrap a towel around my face to mask the smell of the blood to try to distance myself from this situation. The fox is heavier than I expected, its body solid and still marginally warm. I retch. Despite my best intentions to stay calm and remain in control, I heave and gag. I stuff it into a black bin bag, tying it tightly before double bagging it and dropping it into the wheelie bin next to the back door. The weather isn't so warm, that's a good thing. No chance of insects swarming around. No danger of maggots eating their way through the bloodied corpse, wriggling their way around the bottom of the bin. Only when I'm back inside and the door is locked do I allow myself the luxury of crying, letting it all out. The worry, the fear, the terror of the unknown. It all comes spilling out of me, a river of anxiety. My eyes burn. My throat is thick and glutinous as I make myself a coffee and sit at the table, a series of small hiccuping sobs still constricting my breathing. It was always going to be difficult, living on my own. I knew this. None of it is my doing, and yet, as I sit here trying to piece together what has just happened, I can't help feel that I am being punished. Recently widowed, frightened at the prospect of living by myself and, although it pains me to admit it, lonely. With one child living in Australia and the other living about 250 miles away in Oxford, there are days when I feel totally isolated. The shiny new future I regularly speak of still a far-off object, too distant to reach. I'll get to it one day. I'm just not quite there yet. More tears fall. I wallow in self-pity, until my chest aches and my throat is sore, my tear ducts desert dry. I force myself out of it. The abyss of misery I regularly stumble into. It's not healthy being overwhelmed like this. It's not who I am. Besides, I chose to live here, back at my childhood home. It felt comforting, the thought of being here. Still does most of the time. I could have continued living in York, in my lovely city home, grieving, expecting to see Warren every time I walked into a room, and compounded my unhappiness with unrealistic expectations. The move here made sense, still does. Last night, this morning, the find in the garden, it's all a blip in my existence. Here had its losses as well, but they are not fresh, not as raw. Here is a compromise, not a new, unfamiliar home, some place where I would struggle to adjust. My surroundings provide some comfort, and God knows I could do with plenty of that. I stand at the sink, splash my face with water, my flesh numb from the cold. Icy water laps at my skin, the gush from the tap dragging me out of my sullen musings. It feels good, the cold against my flesh, revitalising, blocking out any unwelcome thoughts. Thoughts that have been rekindled now I am living alone. I push them away, shove them back in that dark place in my head, and get on with my day. Chapter 2. The words won't come. It's all such a mess. My ideas jumbled, my thoughts non-linear and chaotic. I should stop writing, not force it. Find something else to do, something that will distract me and free up my thinking. And yet I don't. I stay seated at my desk, deflated and desperate, my self-confidence shrinking by the second. Despite many cups of coffee, the plot and characters refuse to show themselves, staying half hidden in the shadows, dancing on the periphery of my thoughts. A sandwich later, and I'm up at the kitchen window staring out into the garden, ruminating over last night. Thinking about the dead fox, thinking about the blood, the muddy footprints, my dirty feet. Did I do it? Am I capable of such an act? Moreover, why would I be out there, and why can't I remember anything? Behind me, my phone pings, a shrill reminder of how empty this house feels today, how empty I feel inside. It's Kim. She sent me a text, checking how I am, monitoring my mood and making sure I'm up and functioning, getting on with my day. I sigh, bite at my lip and think hard before sending my reply. I'm fine, thanks, sitting trying to write. Shall we meet for coffee sometime this week? Communicating with her is never easy. In her mind, I am still her younger sister, the sibling who never grew up. She sees it as her duty to take care of me, and whilst her interventions and actions are well-intentioned, she forgets that I'm a grown-up woman with adult children of my own, and therefore perfectly capable of taking care of myself. Warren's death heightened her need to protect me, to keep checking up on my every movement. It's kind, and I'm lucky to have somebody watching out for me. I do know that. But there are times when her constant monitoring overwhelms me, more than any bouts of loneliness ever could. Her messages often reminding me of my current predicament, of my bleak state of mind. That sounds perfect. Tomorrow at midday, our usual haunt. Her reply is immediate. I'm being pushed into a corner. Her text reads as they usually do, worded as a fait accompli. I have no choice in the matter. My head aches. I'm being uncharitable. I'm also at an all-time low. Kim knows this. I would do well to loosen up, allow her in, let her care for me a little. I should indulge her, let her feel as if she is helping. She, too, has her foibles and needs. We all want to be wanted, including Kim. I consume more coffee, dark and as strong as my taste buds will allow, while I sit at my computer in the small den next to the kitchen, hoping an influx of caffeine will stimulate my brain. Ideas begin to flow, a slow but steady stream. Not an earth-shattering amount, but I managed to write over 2,000 words. It's better than nothing, and more than I expected after this morning's rude and unwelcome introduction to the day. Words are words. They all help to build the story, to flesh out the bare bones of the plot. Words help me escape. They are a way of blocking out the darkness, a way of stepping back into the light. Listen to me, wallowing in my own wretchedness. Anybody watching would think I enjoy living like this, suspended in a well of unhappiness. I don't. I need to stop it. Start being more positive. My life has changed, and it is what it is. Time to accept my lot and move on. Time to start again. We have the cafe almost to ourselves. A young couple sit in the corner, their voices lowered as they sip at their coffee. They are locked into their own conversation, unaware of our presence. Outside, a large raven pecks at a pile of indistinguishable scraps in the gutter. People pass by the window next to where we are seated, their eyes fixed forward, their minds focused on other things. I sometimes forget that there is a world out there. A world full of people who have their own lives, their own thoughts and worries. All together and yet all very much alone. How are you settling in? I wish you'd let me come over and help you more often. I feel as if I'm neglecting you. I shake my head and smile. I'm fine, honestly. Kim is being polite, going through the motions. She doesn't particularly care for spending time in our childhood home. Never did, as I recall. She was utterly incredulous when I told her I wanted to buy it and move out of Lilac Crescent in York, convinced I did it just to infuriate and upset her. My sister forgets that not everything is about her. Put the past behind us, put it behind you, she had said when I told her of my plan. She put every obstacle possible in my way when I tried to purchase it, claiming it had rising damp, that the 150-year-old roof was leaking and would need replacing. You'll live to regret it. That place is an ever-open mouth, she had said, her eyes dark with smouldering fury. I'd ploughed ahead anyway, ignoring her words, blocking out her negative comments. Besides, I needed a project. Lilac Crescent was like a bland box, each room resembling a show home with its magnolia walls and neat modern furniture. I needed a change. I needed to challenge myself. Tried to take my mind off Warren, my circumstances, my fogged-up brain. The purchase also put cash into Kim's pocket. Mum signed the house over to us before her dementia accelerated, leaving her a husk of the woman she used to be. I bought Kim's half. She has no reason to be aggrieved. Apart from the memories, that is. Those dark, harrowing remnants of our past. Yet I'm the one living with them every day. If I can cope, then why can't she do the same? Simon was a long time ago. And yet there are days when it feels as if it was only yesterday. I feel closer to him here. The thought of selling the house to strangers has always filled me with dread. An army of faceless people traipsing through the place, trampling the memory of our brother underfoot, ripping the very soul out of it. It makes me shiver. His memory is embedded deep within the house, imprinted into the walls, his voice, his face embroidered into the very fabric of the building. To leave him alone with strangers would be a sin. It may not be a tangible form, but I've always felt that he is around, still here. His soul wandering free, still the same boy he used to be. That sounds ridiculous, I know, as if I am able to see into the future, which I am most definitely not. I do feel as if we would be abandoning him if we sold Woodburn Cottage. It's where Simon was born, where he lived as a child, where he will always remain. Warren died of natural causes, a heart attack taken him before his time, and it was tragic, horrific actually, completely unexpected. But leaving Lilac Crescent wasn't a wrench. I wasn't leaving him behind. We'd only lived there for 5 years, having moved from our previous home, where we lived for much of our married lives. Lilac Crescent didn't define him, wasn't a part of him. As I couldn't go back to our other home, this place was the next best thing. It's comforting living somewhere familiar, when my world has been tipped upside down. Warren was also a grown man. Simon was a child, still is. He will remain forever a child, his life stunted by the passing of time. He will always be my little older brother, the child who never grew old, the child who disappeared one day, never to return. I need to tell you something. The words are out before I can stop them. Probably the best way. No overthinking or preamble. That would stop me, and I don't want to be stopped. I want to talk about it. Get it off my chest. Go ahead. Kim lowers her cup, her eyes locked on mine. I'd forgotten how intense she can be, how powerful a presence she is. Most of the time she's simply my older sister, but then sometimes... I woke up yesterday morning covered in blood. The sentence spills out of me. No more thinking or delaying, just get on with it. Let it all out. It wasn't mine, the blood. At least, I don't think it was. I couldn't find any cuts or bruises. And when I went downstairs, I discovered the back door was wide open. I don't tell her about the dead fox. I can't. Something inside stops me. Shame, perhaps. Shame that I may have carried out such an atrocious act. She clears her throat, glances away briefly, gives herself some thinking time. So, where do you think the blood came from? I mean, if, as you say, it wasn't yours. She doesn't have to say, I told you so. I told you that you should never have moved back in that house. It's written all over her face. In her probing gaze, her sullen countenance, her hunched shoulders. I lower my gaze, suddenly wishing I hadn't mentioned it. Kim doesn't know loneliness. She doesn't know me or how I feel. And as for the blood, well, I have no answers. I just wanted to talk about what happened, to have somebody listen to me. My words were impulsive, ill thought out. It's not easy having no sounding board, nobody around to listen to my woes, having no Warren. Now I've said too much, made myself look foolish. My face burns, a rush of blood travelling up my neck, settling in my cheeks, my ears, making me slightly nauseous and dizzy. I sip at my coffee. It tastes like nicotine, strong and bitter, coating my mouth, leaving a pungent aftertaste. Just forget about it. It was nothing. I made a mistake. I sound bitter, my voice tinged with anger, not a rough-edged sort of anger, more of a softer, resigned sort of anger. The type of anger that is tired of everything and everyone. Forget you woke up covered in blood, or that your back door was wide open while you were asleep upstairs. The heat in my face grows. My frustration at her lack of empathy gathering momentum, it builds in my chest, pulses through my veins. I do my utmost to appear calm, measured, sipping at my coffee, and allowing myself time to formulate my answer. It's not easy being the younger sister, having an invisible barrier between us. I think of Mum and wish she were here now with her gentle ways and affable manner. The Mum we once knew. Not Mum as she is now. The large age gap between Kim and me has often set us apart, me feeling inferior in her presence and her forever wanting to control everything I do. Maybe you're doing it again. You did it when you were younger, Grace. Can you remember? Kim's brash tone has softened. Her body supple and relaxed once more. I look into her hazel eyes, wishing I could see her inside her head working out her thinking. See who she really is beneath this tough exterior and steely resolve to never weaken. Doing what? I won't want to remember once she reveals what it is she is about to say. Something about this conversation is making me uneasy. My flesh-protracted sigh and drums her fingernails on the table. Sleepwalking. You did it when you were little. When we both look away. No need to say it out loud. We rarely speak about Simon's disappearance these days. What is there to say? It's been over 40 years. The case, although not entirely closed, has for the most part been shelved and forgotten. Not by me, it hasn't. I will always remember, even if Kim doesn't want to. Something flits into my brain, but it's gone before I can pin it down. Butterfly wings fluttering about on the periphery of my consciousness. Sleepwalking. Is that what it was I did yesterday? Sleepwalk into the garden and do God knows what to some poor defenceless animal. It doesn't feel right, the word's not fitting properly in my head. I know my own capabilities, my strengths and weaknesses, and even in the grip of a deep sleep, I'm sure I could never do such a thing. And yet, it explains everything. The open door, the blood, Mr. Waters thinking he possibly saw me out there. I want to go home now. I don't want to give any more thought to any of this. It helps cement the idea in Kim's head that I'm defenceless, weaker than her, inferior, which I'm not. I'm grieving, upset, lonely even, but I can sort out my life without any judgmental input from anybody else. What I need right now is to be alone. I'm a bit tired, I say, my voice feebler than I would like it to be. I need to get on with my writing. She nods and juts out her bottom lip. I know that look. I know it all too well. It is one of superiority. No matter how old we get, she will always be my older sister, the one who came first. See you next week. Same time, same place. I don't answer. There's no need. She knows me well enough to know that I will return. No matter how difficult life is, no matter how down I feel, no matter how domineering and annoying she is, I will always come back for more. Chapter 3. I'm in the middle of the kitchen. It's dark, it's cold. I shiver, hop about from foot to foot, squint and rub at my eyes, a veil of mistiness marring my vision. Once again the door is open. Not wide open, but ajar. A cool breeze laps around my bare legs, pricking the flesh on my calves, on my arms and face. I step forward, slam the door shut and turn the key, my fingers trembling, numb from the cold. I look down at my feet. No slippers, but at least I'm wearing a short nightgown. I'm not naked. I recall putting it on last night for fear of finding myself outside again. And now here I am, standing barefoot, wondering if I am coming in or about to leave. I lift up my left foot, inspect it for dirt and feel a small amount of relief when I see that it is clean. Small mercies and all that, I'm suddenly grateful for them. Grateful that I haven't been outside causing distress to helpless animals and rousing neighbours from their beds in the middle of the night. Slightly less terrified, less hysterical than I was when this happened a few nights back, I grab a cup and make myself some tea. I need something to settle me, something normal and reassuring and comforting, and tea is just that. The low hiss of the kettle fills the silence in the kitchen. As it boils, I inspect the rest of the house, peeking into the living room, the dining room, the downstairs shower room, all clear. All exactly as I left them before going to bed just over 3 hours ago. No need for any alarm or fear, no need for any hysteria. Not this time. Adding a spoonful of honey to the tea makes me feel better. I sip at it, each consecutive mouthful soothing me. Why have I started sleepwalking? I don't try to think too hard about it, unwilling to stress myself and thus put sleep completely out of reach. I will give it more thought in the morning, once I'm rested, once my mind is clearer, less prone to worry and anxiety, imagining scenarios that don't exist, coming up with explanations that don't quite fit. Visions of me wandering out of the front door, heading down the road in my pyjamas, or, God forbid, nothing at all, fill me with horror. So far, I've kept my journeys to the back garden. What happens if that changes? What if I find myself outside the front of the house in the middle of the night? I push that thought out of my mind, finish my tea, and rinse out the cup, the rattle as it lands on the draining board, setting my teeth on edge. Enough with the overactive imaginings, enough with it all. I climb into bed and lie awake, fretting that I may get back up and wander some more, the thought of how to stop it niggling at me. When I do finally succumb, my dreams are littered with images of a naked me ambling down the road, my mind fogged up with sleep, people passing by, their eyes fixed ahead, appearing to not see me. At the bottom of the street, I think I see Simon, hear his voice calling to me. When I get there, I realise that it isn't Simon at all, but Kim. She's standing next to a huge hole in the ground and she is crying. He's in there, Grace. Can you see him? It's Simon. I lean closer to look and feel her hand on my back as she pushes me in. I fall through the air, my stomach clenched, a scream caught in my throat. I can see a narrow strip of daylight through the curtains when I wake up the following morning. My heart is thumping, and a thin film of sweat coats my chest and neck, the dream still fresh in my mind. My hands travel down my torso, my legs. I feel the warmth, touch the creases in the bedsheets, and almost laugh with relief. No nocturnal wanderings, thank God. I'm here, safe in my bed. For now. Who knows what tonight will bring? For the next few seconds I lie and listen, tuning into the silence, appreciative of the peace and quiet. Warren used to wake with a start, jumping out of bed, banging about the bedroom, driving me insane with his relentless chatter. A tension of opposites tugs at me as I lie here, acutely aware of my solitude, whilst savouring the stillness and calm of the morning. I miss Warren. God, I miss him so much. It's a physical presence within me. Some of my days are so dark, I have to summon every ounce of strength to get out of bed. Then there are other days, like today, when everything doesn't seem so bad after all. When the sun is that little bit brighter, the grass that little bit greener. Everything's sweeter than it has been in a long time. Even that awful dream doesn't dampen my mood. I get up, shower, force myself to forget about the sleepwalking. I refuse to ruin my day by researching it, by stumbling upon some rogue piece of information that will blacken my mood. Information that will fixate on a damaged mind, born out of a tragedy or a trauma. Instead, I set to with my latest book, surprised at how easily it all flows, such a change to the previous day when words got stuck. My mind clogged up with the clutter and detritus of my life. The morning passes quickly, lunch consisting of a piece of toast and a soft-boiled egg. I don't spend the afternoon writing, deciding instead to rifle through some of Warren's things. Things I should have sorted before I moved. Things that made my stomach flip when I thought of looking at them. Before moving here to Woodburn Cottage, I put them all in a suitcase, refusing to glance at any of it, and placed the case at the bottom of the wardrobe in the spare bedroom. The time has come to finally look through them. Tomorrow may be a darker day. I need to do it when the sun is bright and the sky is blue, while things are less oppressive and I have the stomach for such a task. Kim wanted me to throw them away. She tried to take them from me, insisting they were no longer needed. It's just old work documents and stuff, Grace. Why would you want to hang on to them if it's a fresh start you're after? I held my ground, knowing that once the pain of losing Warren had passed, I might possibly find some solace from seeing his things again. I know she meant well, but the idea of disposing of his belongings cut me in two. Getting rid of his clothes was one thing, but throwing away his personal effects without first inspecting them felt completely immoral and cruel. Why would I ever consider doing such a thing? Warren was a person. He existed. And to pretend otherwise just to preserve my sense of well-being is one of the most thoughtless things I could ever imagine doing. The case is heavier than I remember as I drag it out onto the floor with a thump. The contents spill out when I open it, spreading around me in an untidy, papery mountain. Envelopes of varying shapes and sizes, photo albums, notebooks, papers and documents that represent Warren's life. I fight back tears and set about putting them in order, envelopes in one heap, notebooks piled high in another. It takes longer than I expect, and by the time I've assembled them into something I can confidently tackle, almost an hour has passed. A small gathering of old business cards are the first thing to be discarded. I doubt Warren would want me to hang on to the numbers of some of his colleagues and business contacts that he rarely spoke with when he was alive. The photo albums I put in the bookcase. Pictures of Warren with his siblings when he was a child. Family gatherings, the picnics we went on after we first met. They all missed my vision. Tears burning at my eyes as I leafed through them. Happy tears. No sadness or regret, just buoyancy and optimism that I have found the courage to do this task. A month ago it would have felt overwhelming. I flick through the notebooks, stopping as one catches my eye. Most of them are lists of his contacts from work, but one stands out from the rest. It's not an address book. It's a diary. My heart stutters about my chest as I flick it open and stare at his handwriting, at the words written there. I saw her again. I shouldn't have. We talked, that's all. At some point this all needs to come out in the open. I can hardly breathe. It's an old diary from before we met, it has to be. That's the only explanation. It isn't, I know it isn't, it's new. No old papery scent about it, no frayed edges, no yellowing pages. My fingers are made of stone. My palms clammy and slippery as I search through the pages for dates, anything that will tell me when this was written. The notebook slips out of my fingers, landing with a dull thud on the floor. I pick it up, the paper fluttering as I desperately skim through it looking for clues. There are other entries in it, dates for business meetings, a couple of vague sentences about new starters, a reminder for our wedding anniversary, a note about the kids moving away and how much he will miss them. I take a deep breath, try to steady myself, to think clearly. I'm overreacting. Of course I am. This could be anything, a poem, song lyrics, anything at all. Warren was big on his music and often used to tell me about his latest discovery on the music circuit, regaling me with tales about concerts he attended. He would quote verses to me, asking me what I thought they meant, whether they were romantic or stomach-churning in their vain attempts to be hip. My insides loosen, the knots slowly becoming untangled as I think back. He did this so often, it would sometimes drive me half insane. That is what this is. It's from a piece of music or a poem that took his fancy. Warren wasn't an expert on poetry, but always harboured a desire to do some writing of his own. He would often watch me at work, commenting on how I could sustain it for long periods of time, asking me how I had such patience for slowly developing plot or characters that took time to emerge. I'd go mad, sitting hour after hour like that, he would say, as he shook his head and smiled at me. I'll stick with writing emails and listening to my music. Or maybe a short story. I don't think I have a full book in me. I love words. I just don't love sitting still. A small bubble of laughter emerges out of nowhere, slipping out of me unbidden. Hysteria and relief, no doubt. I refused to believe that Kim was right, that I should have binned these papers. This is something I have to do to work through the documentation of Warren's life in order to move on with mine. These words written down here are meaningless. Meaningless to me and Warren, for sure. They were possibly priceless to the author, but I feel sure that that person wasn't Warren. He was a romantic, a wannabe writer of modern poetry, a shameless plagiarist of the work of others. He wasn't a philanderer. We were happy. Just a normal couple who, like everyone else, had their ups and downs.